Retired Navy SEAL Cole Maddox came to the Montana mountains to sell a forgotten fire lookout, not to save anyone. Then, a starving German shepherd stepped from the snow with a dying puppy in her mouth and placed him at Cole's boots. What she trusted him with would uncover an old promise, a broken family, and the light he thought had gone out inside him. Snow fell over the North Road above Whitefish, Montana, in pale sheets that made the forest look clean and untroubled. Cole Maddox did not trust clean things in winter. He drove with both hands on the wheel, the old Forest Service road climbing through lodgepole pine and fir, his olive field jacket stiff around his broad shoulders, a charcoal sweater under it, dark jeans tucked into scuffed snow boots. At 42, he still carried the Navy in the way he sat. Not tight, not relaxed, simply ready. His hair was brown and cut short, silver beginning at the temples. His gray-blue eyes moved over the snowbanks, the tree line, the blind corners. A thin scar crossed the knuckle of his left thumb and whitened each time his grip tightened. On the passenger seat lay a manila folder from the attorney, a ring of old keys, and a letter from his Uncle Warren that he had opened twice and understood less each time. Snowline Lookout now belonged to him. The tower, the cabin below it, a leaning woodshed, a generator shack, and enough frozen ground to call a responsibility. Warren had worked fire seasons here when Cole was a boy, then bought the place after the Forest Service gave it up, repairing it year after year as if old timber and rusted stairs could answer back when spoken to kindly. Cole had no room left for that kind of romance. He had come to inspect the property, make a list, sign with the preservation buyer, and get back to a life that did not ask him to stay. Simple, clean, no ceremony. The road narrowed after the last mailbox, and the trees pressed close enough for their snowy branches to brush the truck mirrors. Far below, the Flathead Valley sat hidden in cloud, but up here, the world was all white slope, black trunks, and the faint copper smell of cold metal from the heater vents. Cole remembered riding this road in Warren's old pickup when he was 12, his uncle tapping ash from a pipe he was never supposed to smoke and saying a mountain never looks dangerous until it has already made up its mind. Cole had laughed then. Boys laughed at warnings until life gave them better manners. He had not laughed much in years. A movement ahead on the right shoulder made his foot ease off the gas. At first he thought it was a deer coming out of the timber. Then the shape staggered into clearer light, and he saw the long body, the black saddle over gold-brown fur, the lowered head carrying something small. A German shepherd. Female. Starved, thin. She froze when the truck stopped, one paw raised, steam lifting from her muzzle. She was a beautiful dog, under the ruin of hunger, with a sable coat matted by snow, a cream chest dark with wet, a black mask around amber eyes, and a small tear along the edge of her right ear. In her mouth hung a puppy. Behind her, another pup tried to follow, so tiny the tire tracks looked like trenches. It took 2 steps, slid belly first, scrambled up with insulted determination, and kept coming. Cole sat still. Training did not leave a man just because the uniform did. He checked the road behind him, the ditch, the thick pines on both sides. No fresh boot prints, no vehicle tucked under the trees. No voices, only paw marks dragging through the snow, a broken trail written by need. He opened the truck door slowly and stepped down. The cold took him at once, sharp through the wool at his throat. The shepherd stiffened. She did not run. She watched him the way tired soldiers watched a doorway, not hoping, not trusting, measuring whether danger was worth the risk. Cole reached into the back seat and found the turkey sandwich he had bought in town and forgotten to eat. He tore away a small piece, too small for pity and just right for caution, and placed it on the snow several feet from himself. Starved bodies could be harmed by sudden generosity. Mercy had rules. The trailing puppy reached the food first, bit it with enormous seriousness, then sat down on its own back feet and toppled sideways. Its little tail twitched, once offended by gravity. Cole almost smiled. Almost. The mother did not move toward the food. She lowered her head, stepped through the snow, and placed the puppy from her mouth at Cole's boots. The world seemed to draw in its breath. The small body lay flat on the snow-gray gold fur-soaked dark muzzle, still one ear folded against its head. Cole crouched slowly enough to give the mother every chance to change her mind. Her lips lifted, not quite a snarl, more a warning written by exhaustion. He removed one glove and touched 2 fingers to the puppy's side. For a second, he felt nothing. Then under wet fur and terrible cold, a breath moved so faint it seemed to arrive from far away. Cole had seen men ask for help without words. He had seen hands press against wounds, eyes search the sky, jokes come too fast from mouths full of blood. But this was different. The shepherd's stare did not plead in the soft way people liked to imagine. It judged him. She had carried the weakest life as far as her body could take it, and now she was handing him the rest of the road. Cole tucked the puppy inside his jacket against his sweater, close to his own heat. The mother took 1 step forward, then stopped, every muscle fighting the instinct to seize her pup back. "I have him," Cole said quietly. "For now, I have him." His phone had 1 bar, then 2, then 1 again. He called the veterinary number he had passed on a sign outside Whitefish. More veterinary care. A woman answered, brisk and breathless, as if she had been interrupted while wrestling the world into order. Cole gave the facts without decoration. Starving German Shepherd mother, 2 pups, 1 barely breathing, North Road to Snowline Lookout. The woman did not waste a sound. "This is Dr. Rachel Moore. Listen carefully. Get that puppy warm, not hot. No food, no forced water. Dry towels if you have them. Body heat until you are indoors. Are you near a building?" Cole looked beyond the bend. Through the trees, the lookout tower rose pale and narrow against the stormlight. A square cabin at its feet, the glass room on top, dark under a cap of snow. "Yes," he said, "there is a cabin." "Then use it. Slow warmth. Call me once you are inside." The line crackled, then held. "If his gums go white or his breathing changes, call before you think. I prefer early trouble to late tragedy." She hung up. Cole stood in the road with the puppy inside his jacket, the second pup trying to chew a frozen clump of sandwich and the mother watching him as if the whole mountain waited for his decision. He opened the truck's rear door and laid an emergency blanket across the floor. The little pup could not climb in. He lifted it with 1 hand. It weighed less than a wet glove and made a tiny, irritated sound as if rescue had poor manners. The mother stared at the open door. Cole stepped back. She climbed in by herself, stiff, wary, royal, in the way only a desperate mother can be. The truck rolled slowly toward Snowline. The tower grew larger. The keys were cold in Cole's palm when he unlocked the cabin. Old air met him, cedar dust, iron mouse droppings, and the sour memory of a place shut too long. He did not stop to feel anything. Feeling had waited this long. The puppy could not. He found the stove, checked the pipe, fed kindling into the belly of it, broke the first match, cursed softly, and lit the second. Flame caught. Towels waited in a cabinet, stiff but clean. Cole warmed them near the stove and laid the pup down with hands that knew pressure, heat, timing, restraint. The mother dog settled near the towel nest, eyes fixed on him. The other puppy crawled half under his boot and fell asleep as if it had conquered enemy territory. Outside, snow erased the road behind them. Inside, the first small warmth spread through the old cabin. Cole knelt beside the weakest pup and saw the tiny ribs lift once, pause too long, then lift again, so thin a motion that he had to bend close to know whether hope was still breathing. Night settled over Snowline Lookout with the weight of wet wool. The wind came through the pines and long, low pushes pressed against the cabin walls and found every crack Warren Maddox had not lived long enough to seal. Cole worked by stovelight, the room smelling of cedar smoke, old dust, wet shepherd, and fear. Blue. The name came from the faded blue scrap of cloth tied around the puppy's middle, lay wrapped in towels on the floor, close enough to feel warmth, but not close enough to be harmed by it. His ribs moved in shallow lifts that made Cole count without meaning to. 1, 2. Wait, too much. Wait, 3. Beside him, the mother watched from the far edge of the towel nest. Cole had begun calling her Sage because of the silver-brown cast in her coat and because the cabin's old cupboards held dry bundles of the herb in glass jars. She had not accepted the name. She had accepted nothing except the temporary fact that Cole's hands had not yet failed her child. That was not trust. It was a ceasefire signed by cold bodies. Dr. Rachel Moore called back every 20 minutes until she lost patience with distance and said she was coming up herself. Until then, she gave orders in a voice made for Barnes kitchens and small emergencies that could become large if people got sentimental. Warm the towel, not hot. Change it when damp. Check gums. Do not feed him. Do not pour water in his mouth. If you feel tempted to do something dramatic, sit on your hands. Cole obeyed. There was comfort in orders. He had always known what to do with orders, even bad ones, even ones that arrived too late. The trouble after leaving the teams was that nobody gave orders about empty motel rooms, 3 a.m. memories, or the sound a man's own breath made when he woke, reaching for a rifle that was not there. This was different. A towel, a stove, a pulse smaller than a coin. Fear had become a list, and lists could be worked. Penny, the stronger pup, refused to honor the solemnity of the night. She wobbled across the floor on soft paws, found Cole's left boot, and shoved her head inside until only her round back and frantic tail remained visible. She reversed with a dust ball stuck to her muzzle and sneezed so hard she sat down. Cole stared at her. Penny stared back with the offended dignity of a judge. For 1 second, his mouth nearly remembered how laughter worked. Sage gave Penny a tired, sideways look that would have shamed a grown man. When Cole searched the cabin for more towels, he found Warren everywhere. Not in photographs or grand gestures, but in labels written on tape and stuck to shelves with square, stubborn handwriting. Stove matches, lantern wicks, coffee if desperate, batteries if lucky. Under the stairs to the tower, a narrow pantry door resisted him until he lifted the latch and shouldered it open. Inside, the shelves were more orderly than the attorney's folder. Wool blankets in plastic, storm lanterns, cans of soup, crackers, a first aid kit, rope, hand warmers, 2 bags of dry dog food sealed inside a metal bin. Taped to the lid was another note. For dogs who refuse to admit they are hungry, feed small. Too much kindness too fast is still too much. Same goes for people, though people argue louder. Cole read it twice. He had not spoken to Warren much in the last 8 years, not because of one fight, which would have been cleaner, but because grief and guilt had a way of making even good voices difficult to answer. Warren had written. Cole had not written back often enough. Now the old man was gone, and here was his kindness inventoried in a pantry for a dog he had never met. Sage lifted her head when Cole carried the dog food into the kitchen. She did not look at the bag first. She looked at the pantry as if some part of her knew this place had once left mercy in a metal bin. Cole poured only a small amount into a chipped bowl and set it away from Blue. Penny reached it first, ate 3 bites, and then planted both front paws in the bowl as if claiming a mining right. Good position, Cole murmured. Hard to flank. Sage's eyes narrowed. Her opinion of his tactical standards was not high. Only after Cole lifted Penny out of the bowl did Sage stand. Every rib showed under her sable coat. She ate slowly, not greedily, pausing between bites to look back at Blue. Hunger had made her body thin, but motherhood had kept her discipline intact. Cole looked away to give her what privacy he could. Outside, the storm thickened. Snow tapped against the window like fingernails. Inside, Blue breathed. Rachel arrived close to midnight in a red pickup with salt crusted over the wheel wells and a veterinary emblem half hidden by snow. She stepped in carrying a brown medical bag and a gust of cold. She was in her early 50s, compact, strong through the shoulders, with short dark hair threaded with gray, sharp hazel eyes, and a lined face that looked severe until her hands touched an animal. She took in the room without drama. Mother, one, weak male, one small criminal. Penny had already found the rawhide lace on Rachel's boot. Cole said, "The criminal is improving." Rachel crouched. Sage growled once, low and official. Rachel stopped instantly, not offended. "Good girl," she said. "You are allowed to object." Cole moved to Sage's side but did not touch her. Rachel waited until the growl faded, then worked with slow precision. Temperature, gums, breathing. A little sugar rubbed where it would help and not choke. More warmth. No promises. Cole watched her face for a verdict and hated himself for needing one. Rachel snapped her bag closed. "He is alive." That is the whole sentence for tonight. Do not make it bigger than it is. The hours after that stretched thin. Rachel stayed because the road below was glazing over, and because Cole suspected she had no intention of leaving a dying puppy with a man she did not yet trust not to obey hope instead of instruction. She sat on a kitchen chair and denied being tired. Cole sat on the floor with his back against a cabinet. Sage remained between them and Blue, but sometime near 3 in the morning her body lowered from a crouch into a curl. Her torn ear twitched at every sound. Her amber eyes closed for no more than a minute at a time. When Cole changed Blue's towel, she lifted her head, watched his hands, and did not growl. That small silence did something to him he had not approved. He had come to this mountain to empty a place, to sell off timber and metal and memory, to leave before old obligations learned his name. Yet the fire was burning now. Rachel's bag sat open on Warren's table. Penny snored inside one of his boots. Sage, starving and stern, had allowed him one more inch of nearness. Blue's breath lifted the towel barely. Cole did not pray often, not in words, not since the desert night when the radio had gone wrong and his best friend had stopped answering. But he found himself staring at the little chest and thinking, "Stay." Not because he deserved that prayer being heard, not because the world was fair, simply because the room had become very small, and one small life had not yet been given permission to leave. Near dawn, Rachel touched 2 fingers to Blue's side and nodded once. "Still here," she said. Cole exhaled. Outside, the wind shoved hard against the cabin, and somewhere below the mountain, the road disappeared under snow. Morning made Snowline Lookout look kinder than it had any right to. Sunlight pushed through a thin break in the clouds and turned the snow on the pines to white fire, while the old tower rose above the cabin with its glass room dark and its metal stairs wearing frost like a warning. Cole trusted none of it. Morning forgave nothing. The cracked window over the sink showed a feathered line of ice where wind had found the split. The floor dipped near the pantry. The back door did not fit its frame. The generator shed leaned as though tired of being useful. In daylight, the place looked less like inheritance and more like a list of ways to fail. Rachel had slept for 20 minutes in a chair and denied it while drinking coffee that tasted like a burned boot. Blue still breathed near the stove, the towel nest changed and dry. Sage lay beside him, her body curved around the pup every few minutes, lifting her head to check the room. Penny had recovered enough to become a menace. She dragged one of Cole's socks under the table and then looked shocked when he took it back. The county SUV came up the road shortly after 10, dark green, clean in the way official vehicles were clean only until weather finished laughing. It stopped by the cabin, tires grinding over packed snow. The woman who stepped out looked like a ruler had been asked to become human. Claire Bennett was 38, tall, lean, straight-backed, wearing a navy forest safety coat zipped to the throat, black snow boots, gray gloves, and outdoor pants that had never known a careless pocket. Her ash-blonde hair was tied at the nape of her neck. Her face was narrow, her blue eyes cool and quick, taking in the tower, the shed, the porch, supports, the chimney, and coal in one sweep. She carried a waterproof clipboard in her left hand. "Mr. Maddox." "Depends on the document," Cole said. "It usually does." "Claire Bennett, Flathead County Forest Safety. Your attorney filed the transfer yesterday. Snowline Lookout has been on our winter risk list for 4 seasons. Ownership changing hands moves it from forgotten problem to active problem. Cole set the ash bucket he had been carrying near the porch rail. "Nice to meet you too. That depends on whether you intend to make this difficult." "I have not decided." Her eyes shifted to the kitchen window. Sage had risen inside, amber gaze fixed through the glass. Penny pressed her nose to the lower pane and fogged it with a heroic breath. Claire's face did not soften, but it changed by one small degree. "You have animals inside," Temporary Cole said. "Are they injured?" "One pup is. Dr. Rachel Moore is here." That earned recognition. Rachel does not climb a closed road for decoration. "No." "Then I will accept the animal care for now." "For now," Cole repeated. Claire opened the clipboard. "You own the structure. You do not own the right to operate it as a public shelter, fire lookout, navigational beacon signal station, or emergency installation. The tower stairs are listed as questionable. The generator is unverified. The radio log is outdated. The shed is compromised." "You got all that from the driveway?" "Some from the file. The rest has eyes." Cole almost respected that. Almost. "I am planning to sell it." Claire's pen paused. Inside, Sage stepped fully into view, placing herself between the window and the towel nest. Claire noticed. So did Cole. "You may be planning to sell," Claire said, "but the dog appears unconvinced." The sentence should not have bothered him. It did. He opened the door and let her inside. Warmth met her first, then stove smoke, old cedar, damp, fur, coffee towels, and the fragile smell of a body trying to return to itself. Sage growled once. Low. Legal. Claire stopped immediately. She did not speak over the dog, which Cole counted in her favor. Rachel looked up from Blue and said, "If you brought paperwork near my patient, I will vaccinate it." Claire did not smile. "Good morning, Rachel. Is the pup contagious?" "No, only inconveniently alive." "Excellent," Claire said, and wrote something down. Cole did not know what to do with people who could be dry under pressure. It made him suspicious. Claire moved through the cabin without touching what did not need touching. She photographed the cracked window, checked the stove clearance, tested the back door, stared at the sagging floor as if it had disappointed her personally. At the base of the tower stairs, she shone a flashlight upward. Rust marked several bolts. Ice clung to the inside rail. She said, "No regular use until inspected and reinforced." "Regular use," Cole said. "You keep saying that like I am opening a lodge. I keep saying it because desperate people do not ask if a door is official before they try it. They see a building, a light smoke from a chimney, and they come." The words landed too close to the towel nest. Claire must have known because her gaze moved toward Sage, then away. "Years ago, my brother followed a light in whiteout conditions near Red Meadow Road. Not a county marker. Somebody had hung a work lamp outside a private cabin. He thought it was the road crew checkpoint." Cole said nothing. The cabin was 50 yards off the safe track. The snowdrift hid the ravine. They found him the next morning, Claire looked up the tower again. So when people tell me lights are hope, I ask who checked the angle, who logged the use, who made sure hope was not pointing at a drop. Cole felt the old answering silence inside him, the one that came when another person's dead stood too near his own. He did not offer comfort. Men and women like Claire did not want comfort from strangers. They wanted competence. A truck arrived before noon. An old blue Ford with a cracked windshield and a shovel wired to the bed. Walt Hayes climbed out slowly, one hand on the door, the other wrapped around a cane polished by weather and irritation. He was 67, with a red, wind-burned face, white hair under a wool cap, and a gray mustache that looked like it had survived arguments with several agencies. He had once worked the fire towers across this part of Montana and had known Warren long enough to insult him with affection. Walt entered without knocking, stomped snow from his boots, and said, "I hear the mountain has acquired a seal, a county clipboard, one veterinarian, and a dog with better judgment than all three." Rachel pointed at him. "Wash your hands if you come near my floor." Walt washed them because only fools argued with Rachel. Then he inspected Blue, gave Penny the end of his cane to chew for exactly 3 seconds, and looked at Sage with unusual quiet. "That one has been here before," he said. Cole frowned. How would you know Walt tapped the floor near the stove? Warren fed strays in bad weather. Dogs remember warm places better than men do. Claire and Walt argued over the tower. Walt called the county inspection list a funeral program for useful things. Claire called Walt's repair notes a charming invitation to liability. Cole listened, watched Sage watching all of them, and felt the cabin becoming less empty by the hour. Empty had been the plan. Empty could be sold. Empty did not care if the window cracked or the pup stopped breathing. Near afternoon, while moving a damp blanket from beside Sage, Cole found a narrow piece of blue wool tangled in her chest fur. It was not from Warren's shelves. The fibers were newer, brighter, caught under a knot of frayed thread. There were 2 letters stitched in uneven white near the torn edge: E and F. Cole held the scrap in his bare fingers. Sage lifted her head, eyes sharpening. Rachel noticed. Claire noticed. Walt leaned on his cane. "Looks like somebody loved her before the mountain got hold of her," Walt said. Cole looked from the wool to the mother dog and then to Blue, who breathed under the towel as if every rise of his ribs had to be negotiated with God. The plan had been to sell Snowline and leave. Now the dog had a past, the pup had a name, the cabin had witnesses, and somewhere below the mountain, a person might be missing. What Sage had carried through the snow. The afternoon over Whitefish had the flat gray color of tin, and snow moved sideways between the storefronts as if the sky had lost patience with falling straight. Cole drove down from Snowline after Rachel checked Blue and said the puppy was still alive, still fragile, still none of the words people wanted to hear. She stayed behind because the road was mean and because she had the manner of a woman who did merciful things while pretending they were scheduling errors. "Find who tied that wool," she told him. "But do not come back proud of your anger." Cole had been reaching for his coat. "I did not say I was angry. You have the face of a man who stores it in labeled drawers." He had no answer for that. Sage watched him from beside the stove, her gold-brown body still too thin, her torn ear angled toward him. Penny tried to follow and tripped over a towel. Cole paused at the door. "I will come back," he said. It sounded foolish, promising a dog anything. Sage blinked once. That was all. Town did not keep secrets. It only made a man ask politely before handing them over. At the gas station near the railroad tracks, a cashier named Linda with silver hair and red reading glasses remembered a woman buying the smallest bags of dog food with coins laid in careful stacks. She had a little girl, Linda said, and that look people get when they are trying not to count out loud. Try the laundromat. Folks with dogs and no money wash blankets there after dark. The laundromat smelled of soap, wet denim, and old heat. Its owner, Mrs. Alvarez, wore a purple sweater and knew every person who came in cold and left with folded clothes because folding gave them a reason to stay warm longer. She looked at the blue wool scrap and touched the stitched letters with one finger. Emma Foster. That child stitched everything for a while after her daddy died. E and F on mittens, scarves, a napkin once. Her mama is Megan. Used to bring in a German Shepherd, beautiful dog, too smart for the rest of us. Mrs. Alvarez's mouth tightened. They are behind the old lumber yard now, unless the landlord found something else to dislike. The old lumber yard sat at the edge of town, where plowed streets turned to rutted lanes, and good intentions looked around for a warmer place to stand. The small rental house behind it had peeling yellow paint, plastic taped over one window, and a porch sagging under snow. Cole knocked once. No answer. He knocked again, softer. The door opened 3 inches. The woman behind it looked younger than 34 at first, not because she was young, but because exhaustion had folded her inward. Megan Foster had honey brown hair tied low with a blue band, a narrow face, pale skin chapped by cold, and brown eyes that moved from Cole's jacket to his boots to the truck behind him, as if danger could be read in details. "If this is about rent," she said, "I already talked to Mr. Hanley." "It is not about rent. My name is Cole Maddox. I am staying at Snowline Lookout." The color left her face so fast he nearly reached out. He did not. "I found a German Shepherd on the North Road," he said. "Sable coat. Torn right ear, 2 pups." Megan's lips parted. For a moment, no sound came. Then, not asking about herself, not the adult dog, she whispered, "Is the little one alive?" Barely, Cole said. "But yes." Megan closed her eyes, and one hand went to the doorframe. "Thank God." The words were not pretty. They came out raw. Behind her, a small girl appeared in the hall, dark blonde hair in a messy braid, wearing a sweater too big in the sleeves. Emma Foster was 9, thin as a reed, with solemn brown eyes that made no attempt to charm anybody. She held a mitten with blue thread in it. Sage Cole looked at the blue wool in his palm. Emma saw it and came forward 2 steps before stopping herself. "That was hers. I tied it because she was cold." Megan pressed her lips together. "Mr. Maddox, please come in." The house smelled of canned soup, damp coats, pine cleaner, and the old oil of a workshop that had moved indoors because there was nowhere else to put it. Medical bills sat on a folding table. A space heater hummed near the couch. In a chair by the window, a man shifted under a blanket and pushed himself upright. Roy Foster was 58, broad once, but thinned by pain, with gray hair, a rough beard, and a right leg braced stiffly under his pants. He reached for a cane, as if pride might be hiding in the handle. Cole listened. It was harder than anger. Anger had clean edges. The Foster story had none. Sage had belonged to them, though belonged was too small a word for a dog that had slept across Emma's doorway after her father died in a logging accident 2 years earlier. Megan had lost shifts at the diner when Roy's injury worsened and hospital rides ate the schedule. The better apartment had gone. The cheaper rental did not allow dogs. Megan had hidden Sage for a while, walking her before dawn, feeding her with money she should have used on gas, telling herself she would find a rescue with room. Then Sage had pups in the shed behind a friend's empty cabin. Megan put blankets there, food, water, a tarp, and the blue scrap Emma had stitched. The plan had been to move them to a ranch in 2 days. The storm came a day early. Roy spiked a fever. Megan's car would not start. She called 3 people and got 3 reasons. Nobody wanted a mountain road in a storm for a dog that was not theirs. "I should have walked," Megan said. She did not look away. "Yes," Cole said. The word was hard. She took it without defense. That told him more than an apology. Roy's jaw worked. I tried. Got as far as the porch steps. My leg went out. He stared at the floor. A man can know what is right and still not make his body do it. Cole looked at the cane, the swollen joint under the pant leg, the tools stacked neatly beside the chair. He could have hated them easily if they had been careless. Careless people were simple. These people had loved and failed in the same breath, and that made the room colder. Emma held the mitten against her chest. "Blue is the small one?" she asked. Cole nodded. "She named him that before we knew he was a he," Megan said softly. "Because of the cloth." Emma swallowed. "Can I see him?" Cole thought of Sage's amber eyes, Rachel's warning, the mountain road, the way Blue's breath sometimes forgot its duty. "Yes," he said. "But you do what Dr. Moore tells you, and you do not crowd Sage." Emma nodded with a seriousness that would have suited a courtroom. The drive back up took twice as long. Snow thickened in the trees, and the truck crawled past drifts that had grown while Cole was gone. Megan sat in the passenger seat, twisting the blue band around her wrist. Emma sat in the back beside Roy, who tried not to groan each time the road jolted his leg. None of them filled the silence. Cole appreciated that. At Snowline, smoke rose from the cabin chimney, thin and stubborn. Rachel opened the door before he knocked. Her eyes took in the Fosters and said several things her mouth did not. Inside, Sage rose at once. Her body went rigid. Emma stopped just inside the door, mitten clutched in both hands. "Hi, Sage," she whispered. The dog's ears moved forward. For one suspended second, all the warmth in the cabin seemed to wait. Then Sage made a low sound, not welcome, not warning. Something older than both. Emma began to cry without noise. Penny waddled over, sniffed Roy's boot, and tried to untie it. Roy stared down. "That one always had ambition," he muttered. Rachel pointed to the stove. "Everyone who is going to feel guilty can do it while warming towels. Move." Megan obeyed. Emma knelt where Rachel told her. Cole stood by the door, holding Cold on his shoulders like another coat. Blue stirred in the towel nest, eyelids fluttering. Emma leaned forward, hope breaking across her face. Then the tiny pup opened one eye, breathed in with a wet rasp, and his whole small body tightened as if an invisible hand had closed around his chest. Snowline Lookout darkened early that evening, the mountain folding itself into blue shadow, while the cabin held a circle of stove light against the storm. Rachel was on the floor before anyone else finished reacting. Her voice cut through the room, not loud, but shaped like a hand on the back of panic. "Megan, warm towel, not hot. Emma, sit back on your heels and breathe. Roy, keep that door shut unless you want to explain to this puppy why Montana needed the last word. Cole, light." Cole moved without being asked twice. Blue's rasping breath rattled once, stopped too long, then returned, thin and stubborn. Sage stood over the towel nest, shaking from every muscle, her amber eyes going from Rachel's hands to Emma's face and back again. She did not bite. That restraint was its own kind of bravery. Rachel rubbed something along Blue's gums, shifted his position, and worked with the careful patience of a woman who had learned that tiny bodies could not be bullied back to life. The room waited. Even Penny, half under Walt's cane, went still. When Blue's breathing eased from a scrape to a faint whistle, the cabin exhaled in pieces. Megan pressed both hands over her mouth. Emma stared as if she had just watched a door open a crack. Roy turned toward the window and rubbed at his eyes with the heel of his hand. "Smoke," he said. Cole looked at the clean fire. Rachel did not. "Terrible smoke," she said. Nobody laughed loudly. Nobody needed to. The moment was too fragile for noise. After Rachel had Blue settled again, she began assigning work like a general with better bedside manners than she wanted anyone to know. Megan learned to rotate towels and write times on a pad. Emma was allowed to place 2 fingers near Blue's side, not on him, just close enough for him to feel warmth without being crowded. Roy stood near the door, uselessness chewing at his face. Cole saw it because he knew the taste. He took a hammer from Warren's tool shelf and a box of screws from the drawer. "The wood box by the back door has a split seam," he said. "Snow is getting in." Roy looked at the hammer as if Cole had offered him insult or mercy, and he could not tell which. Cole held it out. "Door does not care who you used to be. It only cares if you fix it." Roy took the hammer. He moved slowly, cane tucked under one arm, jaw clenched with the effort of crossing the room without making a performance of pain. Outside, the cold punched hard when Cole opened the back door for him. Roy glanced at the shed, then at the wood box, measuring. "Used to frame cabins north of Kalispell," he said. "Used to is a crowded place," Cole said. Roy looked at him. For a second, something like anger steadied him. Good. Anger could carry a man 3 steps when shame would not carry him 1. Roy set himself beside the box and began working. The first screw slipped. The second bit. By the third, his hands remembered more than his leg had forgotten. Cole stayed near but did not hover. Some men needed help. Some needed the dignity of not being rescued too quickly. Inside, Megan's voice murmured with Rachel's. Emma whispered Blue's name under her breath every few minutes like a thread tying him to the room. Sage watched them all, still suspicious, still thin, but no longer alone in the terrible work of keeping her pup alive. As evening deepened, the truth of the Foster family came out in practical pieces. Megan had not tried to make herself innocent. That made her harder to condemn. She spoke while wringing towels because hands sometimes gave confession a place to go. After her husband Daniel died on a logging job near Libby, Sage had become the thing that kept Emma walking from bedroom to kitchen, then from kitchen to school bus. Roy moved in after the accident to help, then hurt his leg clearing storm debris for a county contractor. The bills stacked. The landlord sold the decent duplex. The cheap rental behind the lumber yard came with rules printed in black ink and no mercy between the lines. No pets. No exceptions. Megan had hidden Sage because Emma stopped speaking whenever the dog was gone too long. When Sage had pups, Megan had been both terrified and grateful. New life had arrived in a house that had forgotten how to expect anything but invoices. Cole listened from near the stove, one shoulder against the wall. He wanted anger because anger was easier than compassion with teeth. He wanted someone to blame cleanly. But poverty was not clean. It left muddy prints everywhere on choices, on timing, on the pride of people who would rather bleed quietly than ask early. "You still should have gone," Cole said. Megan nodded. "I know. No excuse. Just what happened." Rachel glanced at him, not warning exactly, but measuring whether he could tell the difference between judgment and cruelty. Cole looked at Sage. The shepherd had lowered herself beside Blue again. Her muzzle rested inches from Emma's hand. That was not forgiveness. Dogs did not hand out forgiveness like church programs. It was permission for the next right thing. Emma's fingers trembled near the towel edge. Blue stirred. His eyelids moved. The little pup opened both eyes for the first time, cloudy and unfocused, and made a sound so faint it might have been a squeak from the floorboards. Emma's breath caught. "Hi, Blue," she whispered. Sage leaned down and touched the pup's head with her nose. Penny, unable to respect holy moments for more than 5 seconds, pounced on the end of the towel and tumbled over her own feet. Walt, who had returned with radio batteries and a thermos he claimed contained coffee, though it smelled dangerous, grunted from the table. "That one is going to need a lawyer." Penny bit the towel. Rachel said, "She can share Cole's." The next morning brought Claire Bennett back with a storm warning and a clipboard thick enough to bruise a conscience. The sky above Snowline had turned pewter, and the air smelled metallic in the way it did before serious weather. Claire stood in the kitchen while Penny tried to climb onto her boot. She did not move the boot. That was her concession to sentiment. The National Weather Service updated the system track, she said. Heavy snow by tomorrow night, whiteout conditions likely above 4,000 feet, wind gusts enough to close the North Road. Snowline is not cleared for occupancy beyond private use. Rachel snorted. Private use currently includes one recovering shepherd, 2 pups, a veteran with a martyr complex, a family with guilt poisoning Walt and me. Claire looked at her. That is exactly why I am here. She laid out the list. Replace or cover cracked glass, seal back door, inventory blankets and food, test radio, inspect generator. Do not activate tower light except under coordinated emergency contact. Walt leaned back in his chair. You write lists like a woman trying to staple the weather down. Claire did not look at him. I write lists because the weather does not read memorial plaques. The room quieted. Cole saw her hand move to the pocket of her coat, where he guessed some object connected her to her brother waited. He did not ask. Instead, he took the paper. We will work the list. Claire's eyes moved to his face. We. Cole looked around the cabin. Roy had set the repaired wood box near the back door. Megan was folding towels with dates written on a paper beside her. Emma sat near Blue, careful as a candle flame. Rachel checked Sage's gums. Walt unscrewed the radio casing while insulting its ancestry. Penny dragged one of Claire's pencils under the table with criminal patience. We, Cole said. It was not a speech. It was barely a sentence. But something in the room shifted, as if the old cabin had heard the plural and decided to hold heat a little better. Outside, the wind strengthened. Snow began to move in, hard white grains across the porch. Claire looked toward the tower, then at the mother dog beside the stove. If you are going to stay through the storm, she said, you do it correctly. Cole folded the list and placed it beside Warren's keys. Then we start now. The days before the big storm did not transform Snowline Lookout. Nothing honest changed that quickly. The cabin improved by inches and inches. Cole learned again could demand more patience than miles. Snow hissed against the windows. The stove ticked and settled. Towels were washed in the dented basin hung near the heat, folded, used, and washed again. Roy braced the wood box, patched a gap at the back door, and fixed the latch on the generator shed while pretending his leg did not make every trip an argument. Megan labeled shelves in the pantry with block letters: blankets, soup, batteries, dog food, hand warmers, first aid. Emma wrote Blue's name on a piece of tape and stuck it to the side of the towel basket. Rachel told her that medical charts did not usually include decorations. Emma said nothing, only looked at Rachel with quiet brown eyes. Rachel sighed and added Penny's name to a second strip of tape. Cole saw it happen, and wisely did not comment. Claire came each day, sometimes for an hour, sometimes longer than her schedule could explain. She tested the radio and made Cole repeat call signs until Walt threatened to throw himself from the first stair out of boredom. She checked the tower bolts, photographed the rail, measured the angle from the lantern room to the North Road, and taped a red warning card beside the control box. No activation without coordinated emergency contact. Cole read the card every time he passed it. It annoyed him. That was probably why it worked. Claire's rules had edges, but they were not empty. They had been built around a grave somewhere, a brother named only once, and then carried in silence. Walt, for all his grumbling, respected her measurements. He had the old tower knowledge, the feel of metal and weather, the memory of how Snowline had once watched over smoke columns and lost hunters. Claire had the modern maps, liability codes, rescue channels, and fear sharpened into procedure. They fought often. They were both useful. Cole trusted useful before pleasant. Walt taught him the light mechanism on the third afternoon while the sky lowered over the ridge. The lantern room at the top of the tower smelled of cold iron, old dust, and the mineral scent of snow pressing against glass. The light was not a lighthouse beam, not a grand sweep for ships, but a rotating mountain beacon Warren had installed years ago for emergency visibility during fire seasons and search operations, long decommissioned, half forgotten, still bolted to its metal base. The auxiliary motor could turn it if the generator held. If the generator failed, a manual crank under a steel cover could move the assembly by hand. Walt lifted the cover with the reverence of a man opening a stubborn memory. Warren kept this because machines choose bad times to become philosophical. Cole gripped the crank and turned. It resisted. His left shoulder tightened at once, old pain waking with bad manners. "Slower," Walt said. "Do not prove anything to metal. Metal does not care about your biography." Cole breathed out and turned again, steady this time. Above them, the light shifted a fraction. Down below, a low sound rose from the cabin. Sage stood at the bottom of the tower stairs, head lifted, ears forward, body still thin but stronger now. She had left Blue for the first time in hours, her amber eyes fixed on the lantern room, then moved to Cole, then back toward the kitchen. Walt leaned over the rail. "See that? She knows." Cole said nothing. "Knows what?" Walt asked, because old men sometimes asked questions they had already answered. Cole looked at Sage. Maybe warmth. Maybe Warren. Maybe the smell of smoke and dog food and old wool. Maybe nothing anyone could put on a county form. But when Sage turned and went back to her pups, the moment stayed in the metal air. Somewhere inside that dog, Snowline was not an abandoned property. It was a direction. She had dragged Blue through snow toward it, not toward Cole, not exactly. Toward a place that had once meant survival. The man who inherited that place had not yet decided what survival required of him. That evening, Cole found Warren's lookout log in a drawer under a stack of yellowed maps. The cover had cracked at the spine. Inside were dates, temperatures, fire watches, wind directions, notes about hunters who had come in lost and embarrassed, a church group caught in hail, a boy with a broken wrist, 2 dogs fed during a March storm, one woman who left a thank you note, and 6 cans of peaches. Warren's handwriting grew shakier near the end, but the humor stayed. "Snowline is not a chapel," one entry read, "but people lower their voices when they arrive cold." Another said, "Keep coffee blankets and dog food. A person can lie about hunger. A dog will tell the truth with its ribs." Cole sat at the table long after everyone else had found work or sleep. The attorney's sales folder lay beside the log, clean and modern and ready. The log smelled of dust and smoke. Blue made a faint sound in his sleep. Penny chewed the corner of a rag Roy had already sacrificed. Sage opened one eye and closed it again. The radio cracked just before dusk on the 4th day. Walt had replaced a corroded contact and was congratulating himself in language Claire would have banned from official minutes. Static filled the kitchen. Then a voice surfaced, broken and frightened. "County Relay, this is Grace Chapel Van North Forest Road. Visibility gone. We missed the marker. 4 passengers, 1 diabetic, heater failing." Static swallowed the rest. Claire moved first. She crossed the room and took the handset. "Grace Chapel Van, this is Flathead County's safety at Snowline Lookout Relay Point. Repeat your location." Nothing. Then fragments. "North Fork turn. Maybe Road 7. Can't see. Elderly passengers. Snow over hood." Rachel's eyes went to Blue. The pup had been improving, but that morning his gums had paled again. She had said quietly that if he crashed, oxygen would help, and oxygen was at her clinic, below a road now turning dangerous. Cole looked at Claire. She was perfectly still, the handset near her mouth, the old wound in her face visible for one unguarded second. A lost vehicle in whiteout, a light that might help or harm, a procedure that had to be exact. Walt reached for the map. "Snowline can mark the ridge if they are where I think they are," he said. Claire's jaw tightened. Not unless we confirm rescue channel and angle. The radio spat static again, then the voice of the van driver came through, thinner now. We see nothing. Please, if anyone can hear us, please tell us where to go. In the towel nest, Blue coughed once and went very quiet. The cabin seemed to hold two emergencies in the same breath. The storm arrived over Snowline like a door being slammed by the sky. By early evening, the windows had gone white, not frosted, but blind, as if the world outside the cabin had been erased and replaced with moving chalk. Wind hit the tower hard enough to make the metal stairs complain. The pines vanished 10 yards from the porch. Inside, the radio hissed on the table while everyone learned the strange discipline of not speaking unless useful. Claire stood over the map, one gloved finger following the North Forest Road, her other hand holding the handset close enough that the cord pulled tight. Walt leaned beside her, cane hooked over his elbow, muttering distances and old road names the county map had forgotten. Cole stood near the stove but kept his eyes moving between Blue and the tower door. Rachel had Blue wrapped in fresh towels, her face composed in the way a cliff was composed. That did not mean it was calm. It meant it had decided not to fall. The Grace Chapel van came through in broken pieces. 4 passengers. 3 seniors from a Bible study lunch in Columbia Falls. 1 driver, named Paul. 1 woman with diabetes whose hands had begun shaking. 1 heater that coughed more than it warmed. They had missed the county marker when snow swallowed the intersection. Their phone GPS had frozen, then died. The van was stuck nose first in a drift, angled on a slope the driver could not see. Claire asked for landmarks. Paul gave what he could. A fallen sign, a hairpin turn, a stand of burned trunks. Walt stabbed the map. Old Road 7 spur, he said. If he is near the burn, he is below the north shoulder. If he turns downhill, he drops toward the drainage. Claire's face went pale in a controlled way. Do not say drainage like it is a ditch. It is a ravine, Walt said. I know what it is. The radio snapped. Paul, this is Snowline Relay. Stay in the vehicle. Do not attempt to walk. Do you copy? Static. Then copy. Hard to hear you. We thought we saw a light earlier. Claire's hand tightened around the handset. There is no authorized marker in your current line. Do not move toward any unconfirmed light. The words had weight. Everyone heard it. Cole saw the ghost of her brother pass through the room without needing a name. Rachel did not look up from Blue. His gums are paler, she said. He needs oxygen if this keeps sliding. Megan stood beside her with a warmed towel, face drawn tight. Emma sat on the floor, both hands folded in her lap because Rachel had given her no job for the moment, and she did not know where to put Love when Love was not allowed to touch. Sage lay near Blue but did not rest. Her body had filled out a little over the past days, yet the bones still showed when she breathed. Penny, indifferent to crisis as a matter of policy, tried to drag one of Walt's extra socks behind the pantry and became briefly trapped under it. Nobody laughed, but Roy's mouth twitched. It helped. Then the radio came alive with the county rescue channel. A team was staging below the closed gate, but plows were delayed. Snowmobile access possible from the West Ridge. Volunteer en route with medical supplies if Snowline can receive. Rachel lifted her head. Who? Claire listened. Ben Carter. Ben Carter was 44. A mountain rescue volunteer with a reputation for finding people in weather that sensible men avoided, and then complaining that their boots were inadequate. He had access to Rachel's clinic through the emergency lockbox, and Rachel gave permission over the radio for him to retrieve a compact oxygen kit, warming packs, and the medication bag she had left ready in case Blue crashed. Ben's voice came through steady under static. I can take the west service track to Snowline, then relay toward the van if visibility gives me anything. Claire answered at once. Do not proceed past Snowline without confirmed bearing. Repeat, do not chase lights, tire tracks, or guesses. Ben paused. Copy. Your clipboard voice is coming through perfectly. Walt grunted. I like him. Claire ignored that. The question in the room sharpened. Snowline's beacon could give Ben and the rescue team a fixed point. It could also mislead the van if used carelessly. The light was both promise and hazard, exactly as Claire had always said. Cole looked at her. We can coordinate it. Claire looked back. We can if the radio holds, the angle is correct, the beam sweep is logged, and nobody decides. Courage means improvising. Walt spread the map and set a mug on each corner. Snowline sits here. The van is likely below the north shoulder. If the beam sweeps east to west across the ridge, they use it as a reference only, not a target. Rescue guides them by radio. Ben uses it to keep his bearing to the tower. Claire drew a line with a pencil. This angle avoids the drainage. Walt nodded. That is the safe sweep. Claire turned to Cole. You will not activate until I establish county relay approval. You will stop if I say stop. You will not widen the sweep because it feels better. Cole felt the old response rise, the one that resisted being managed by anyone who had not earned dirt under their nails. He let it pass. Yes. Claire studied him for 1 second longer. Then she radioed County. While they waited, Roy dragged a board across the cabin floor and wedged it against the back door, where wind had begun pushing powder through the seam. Megan counted towels. Emma whispered, blue, blue, blue. Not as panic, but as company. Sage lifted her head toward the tower stairs. County approval came with conditions. Temporary visual support, fixed interval, logged start and stop radio guidance, primary. Claire repeated it aloud. Walt climbed the tower stairs with a tool roll and language that should not have been allowed near children. Cole followed, shoulder already tightening at the thought of the crank. The lantern room was colder than the cabin, glass rattling snow streaking sideways across the dark. The beacon assembly sat under its cover like an old heart waiting to be asked too much. Down below, Rachel called up, I need that oxygen, gentlemen, so whatever heroic nonsense is about to occur, make it useful. Walt opened the control panel. Claire stayed at the radio by the stairwell, logging times. Cole pulled the generator cord. The motor coughed. A light flickered on the panel. For 1 bright second, the mechanism above them began to turn. Then the generator choked, gave a hollow knock, and died. Silence took the lantern room. Walt stared at the panel. Of course, he said. Old machines prefer drama. Cole looked at the manual crank under the steel cover. His shoulder pulsed before he touched it. Claire's voice came up from below, clipped and clear. Ben is on the west track, van still holding position. If we cannot establish the beam, we tell them no visual marker. Cole opened the cover. The metal handle waited cold as a decision. The lantern room shook around Cole as if the storm had found the tower personal. Snow hammered the glass in white streaks. The beam housing creaked above him. Below the cabin glowed through cracks in the stairwell a pocket of orange warmth under a night trying to close its fist. Cole wrapped both hands around the manual crank. The steel was so cold it bit through his gloves. Walt stood at his right shoulder, one hand braced on the frame, the other holding a flashlight toward the gears. Easy, he said. Not hard. Let it catch. Cole planted his boots. The first pull did not move. The second shifted the mechanism a fraction and sent pain up his left shoulder, hot and old from the place where a bad landing in another country had left bone and tendon arguing ever since. He breathed through his teeth. Pain was information. It did not get to vote. Downstairs, Claire's voice carried over the radio and up the stairwell. County relay, Snowline preparing manual visual support. Fixed sweep, north shoulder reference only. Start on my mark. Walt leaned closer to the gears. Again. Cole turned. Metal groaned. Dust shook loose. The beacon resisted, then moved, slow as an animal waking in winter. A pale bar of light slid across the glass and vanished into the white. It seemed useless. The storm swallowed it whole. Cole turned again. The beam came back slightly stronger, cutting a dim arc over the ridge. Claire called up, "Hold that interval. Do not widen." Cole found a rhythm. Pull, breathe, guide. Pull, breathe, guide. His shoulder burned. His lower back tightened. Sweat gathered under his sweater, though the room was freezing. Walt watched the timing and corrected him when the sweep dragged. "You are rushing the bad half." "There is a bad half. It is all bad half if you get dramatic." Cole almost smiled, but the crank punished distraction. In the cabin, blue worsened before help arrived. Rachel kept her voice low, but every adult heard the change. "Megan Tao." "Emma, talk to him." "Roy, that door." "Penny, stop committing crimes against my medical bag." Penny had indeed managed to tug one strap 2 inches across the floor before Sage put one paw on it and pinned her daughter with a look. Emma leaned close enough for Blue to hear, not close enough to crowd. She told him about Sage sleeping across her bedroom door after her father died, about how Penny had once tried to bite a snowflake and looked betrayed when it vanished, about how he was not allowed to leave because she had only just found him again. Megan worked beside Rachel with hands that shook but obeyed. Her face had lost its excuses. What remained was effort. Roy shoved his shoulder against the back door while Wind tried to force it open, jaw clenched, injured leg braced. He had not protected Sage in the storm before. He could keep this door shut now. Sometimes redemption was not poetry. Sometimes it was a man holding a piece of wood against weather. Sage stood at the foot of the tower stairs, torn, ear forward, body angled toward both emergencies. Each time Blue made a sound, she turned. Each time the beacon gears groaned overhead, she looked up. Her world had become divided between the pup on the floor and the man turning the light. She did not understand county approval ravine angles or radio protocol. She understood warmth. She understood danger. She understood that the room's breathing had become one thing. Claire stood near the stairwell with the handset and clipboard, her face lit by lantern glow, her blue eyes fixed on the second hand of her watch. "Grace Chapel Van Snow line visual active. You see a rotating light above your left line?" Static chewed the reply. Then Paul's voice came thin and cracked. "We see something. Faint. To our right." Claire closed her eyes for half a second. "Do not drive toward it. Use it only as a ridge reference. Turn your wheels left 5 degrees and wait for rescue instructions. Repeat." "Do not drive toward the light." The words were mercy with teeth. Cole heard them and kept turning. The crank became the world. Pull, sweep, breathe, hold. Walt's flashlight shook once, and Cole realized the old man's hand was tired too. Neither of them mentioned it. Outside, somewhere in that white blindness, Ben Carter rode a snowmobile along a service track that did not forgive mistakes. His voice came through in bursts. "Snowline, I have intermittent visual. Beam confirms ridge. Staying high of slope." Claire answered, "Stay high. Do not drop toward lower cut." Ben copied. He sounded close and far at once, swallowed by engine noise and weather. County Relay confirmed the main rescue team had reached the closed gate and was advancing on foot with ropes. The van driver kept answering each reply, weaker but still there. "One passenger is confused," he said. "Heater is almost gone." Claire's hand tightened. "You keep them seated. Rescue is moving. Do not leave the vehicle. The light is not your destination." "It is the wall you do not cross." Cole's shoulder began to fail around the 20-minute mark. Not all at once. Failure rarely had the courtesy. His grip loosened, then recovered. The sweep slowed. Walt snapped, "Steady." Cole turned. Pain shot down his arm and into his thumb scar. For a moment, he was not in Montana. He was under a foreign sky, sand in his mouth, radio static in his ear. His friend Mason bleeding through a bandage Cole could not press hard enough. He had kept working then, too. It had not been enough. The memory came with heat, shame, noise. Then, from below, Emma's small voice rose through the stairwell. "Come on, Blue. Stay with Sage. Stay with us." Cole looked down through the spiral gap. He could not see the pup, only the warm square of the cabin and Sage's shape at the bottom of the stairs. The past loosened its grip by one finger. This was not that night. This was this night. The crank was in his hands. The light was moving. People were answering. He pulled again. Ben's snowmobile appeared first as sound, a high engine whine threading through the wind. Then Roy shouted from below, "Light on the west track!" Claire relayed Ben approaching Snowline. "Maintain beam." Cole kept turning until the front door banged open and cold flooded the cabin. Ben Carter came in frosted from helmet to boots, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing an orange rescue jacket with reflective bands and a black radio harness across his chest. He had a weathered face, dark beard, silvered at the chin, and eyes narrowed by years of looking into snow. In one hand he carried Rachel's medication bag, in the other the compact oxygen kit. "Sorry I'm late," he said. Rachel took the kit. "Apologize after the patient has the nerve to survive." Ben grinned once and stepped aside. Cole did not see any of it. Walt did. "Oxygen arrived," he called up. "Van Rescue still needs the sweep." Cole nodded and kept turning. The beam crossed the storm again and again. Not beautiful, not symbolic in any soft way, simply placed where it needed to be. The radio crackled. "County team has visual reference, moving toward Van." Claire's voice stayed steady, but Cole heard the breath under it. "Hold the interval," she called. Cole held it though his shoulder trembled, and the crank seemed to grow heavier with every turn. The storm did not break at midnight. It grew harder, as if angered that the little tower had dared to answer it. Snowline's beacon swept through the white in a slow, disciplined arc, appearing and disappearing, never promising safety by itself, only giving the rescuers a fixed truth in a world that had lost its edges. Cole turned the crank until his hands ached inside his gloves. Walt stood beside him, shoulders hunched, face red from cold, keeping his eyes on the gears and the timing. Downstairs, Claire's radio work stitched the night together. "County team, Snowline beam is Ridge reference. Grace Chapel van stay seated. Ben, remain at Snowline unless directed. Paul, answer if you can hear me." Each call went out clean. Each reply came back broken. She wrote times on the log with a pencil Penny had not managed to steal. Her handwriting did not shake, though her mouth had gone pale. Rachel worked over Blue with the oxygen kit, Ben kneeling beside her to hold the small mask where she told him. Blue looked impossibly small against the towel, his gray gold fur dry now, but still too loose over bone. His chest fluttered, fought, steadied, then fluttered again. Megan stood behind Emma with both hands on her daughter's shoulders, not holding her back exactly, more holding herself together through the child. Emma did not cry. She had gone somewhere quiet inside, a place children found when adults had used all the noise. She whispered to Blue in a steady thread, "You have to breathe. Sage is here. Penny is being bad. Mr. Cole is upstairs making the light go. You have to see it later." Sage lay with her nose almost touching Blue's side. But when Rachel adjusted the oxygen, the mother dog lifted her head and did not interfere. That was trust now, not love. Not yet. Trust was harder earned than love, and tonight it looked like a starving German shepherd allowing human hands to help her child breathe. Roy held the back door through the worst gusts. The patched seam bowed inward. He jammed his shoulder into the brace and muttered at the weather like a man negotiating with an enemy he used to know. His bad leg shook. Ben saw and moved to help, but Roy barked, "I have it." Ben stopped. "Good," he said. Holler when the door wins. It will not. Roy's voice came through clenched teeth. Megan looked over once, and something passed between father and daughter that had no space for speeches. She had seen him fail to reach Sage in the first storm. Now she saw him spend himself against a door so warmth would stay in the room. It did not erase what happened. Nothing did. But it put a nail into the next right board. Up in the lantern room, Cole's rhythm faltered. The crank slipped half an inch. The beam dragged. Walt snapped his cane against the metal frame, sharp as a gunshot. Stay with me. Cole's breath came hard. I am here. Then be here at the right speed. Cole wanted to curse him. He did not have the spare air. He reset his grip. His left shoulder felt as if someone had driven a hot wedge beneath the joint. Sweat ran down his spine and chilled there. The tower swayed, maybe in the wind, maybe in his body. He could hear the radio below. He could hear Emma. He could hear the faint, high whine of the oxygen valve. The work narrowed until there was no room for memory, no room for the attorney's folder, no room for the clean life he had planned. Turn, sweep, breathe, hold. Again. The beam went out, came around, struck the storm, vanished, returned. Not a miracle, a pattern. County relay broke through at 12:38 a.m. Rescue team has located van. Stand by. Claire's pencil stopped. Everyone froze except Cole because the beam still had to move. Static filled the cabin. Then Paul's voice came hoarse and unbelieving. We see headlamps. They are here. Emma let out a sound that was almost a sob and almost a laugh. Megan turned her face into her hands. Roy kept holding the door because some duties did not end at good news. Claire spoke into the handset. Grace Chapel van remains seated until rescue opens your door. County team confirm passenger condition when able. The reply took another awful minute. 4 passengers alive, 1 cold stress, 1 diabetic episode managed, no major trauma visible. Claire lowered her head. Her hand went to her coat pocket, and this time she did not hide it. When she pulled it out, Cole saw from above a small brass compass, dark with age, hanging from a cord. She held it tight while the radio continued to speak. Blue chose that moment to scare them. His chest hitched, then stopped long enough for Rachel's face to change. Megan made a small, broken sound. Emma went white. Rachel adjusted the oxygen, rubbed his side, and spoke low and fierce. No, sir. You do not get dramatic after supplies arrive. That is poor manners. Ben held the line steady. Sage rose to her feet, trembling, but did not push Rachel away. Penny crawled from under a chair with Rachel's missing gauze packet in her mouth, saw the room's seriousness, and dropped it as if even she had limits. Blue's chest moved. Once. Again. Then a third time, deeper than before. Rachel did not smile. Veterinarians knew better than to smile too early. But she nodded. There. That was the word the room had been waiting for. There. Cole kept turning until Claire called up that the van passengers were being transferred. The rescue team had full bearing and the beam could be brought down. Even then, he did not stop at once. Walt put a hand near the crank, not touching Cole, just close enough to catch the mechanism if his grip failed. Ease it down. Cole slowed the rotation. The beacon made one last sweep over the white ridge, then settled into darkness. The lantern room seemed to shrink. Without the moving beam, the storm sounded bigger. Cole let go of the handle and found his hands cramped into hooks. His shoulder trembled so hard he had to brace it against the wall. Walt looked through the glass at the blank night. Well, he said quietly, the old place still remembers its manners. Cole descended the stairs slowly. Each step woke something in his back and arm, but pain felt almost honest now. In the cabin, Rachel had Blue settled with oxygen support, his breathing still weak, but more even. No sudden cure, no leap into safety, just a small chest doing its work a little better. Emma sat beside the towel nest, hands folded, eyes huge and wet. Megan knelt behind her. Roy leaned against the repaired door, exhausted and upright. Ben stood by the table, thawing ice from his beard, while Penny investigated his boot with professional interest. Claire stood near the radio compass, still in her hand. Sage turned when Cole reached the floor. She did not come to him. She did not nuzzle his wrist. Instead, she stepped aside just enough for him to see Blue clearly. That permission struck him harder than gratitude would have. Rachel looked up. "He is not out of danger, I know," Cole said. "But he is breathing better." Outside, the storm still covered the mountain. Inside, Snowline Lookout had not saved anyone by being beautiful. It had helped because Claire logged the signal, because Walt knew the mechanism, because Ben came through the west track, because Rachel knew the pup's needs, because Roy held the door, because Megan and Emma kept warmth moving, because Sage trusted one more inch, and because Cole turned the crank when the motor failed. For that night, that was enough. Morning came to Snowline Lookout, pale and careful, as if the sun did not want to wake anything too suddenly. The storm had moved east before dawn, leaving the mountain buried under clean snow and broken branches. The pines stood weighted and silent. The tower rose above the cabin with its beacon dark, its glass crusted at the edges, its metal stairs wearing ribbons of ice. From the porch, Cole could see the ridge where the light had swept through the night. It looked ordinary now. That was one of the rude habits of places where important things happened. They rarely looked impressed with themselves afterward. His left shoulder throbbed deep in the joint. His hands were stiff. When he flexed his fingers, the scar over his thumb flashed white. Inside the cabin, Rachel had slept for 30 minutes in a chair and threatened Walt with medical violence when he mentioned it. Blue was still alive. Rachel made sure nobody treated that sentence as permission to celebrate too loudly. "Better does not mean safe," she said, while listening to the tiny chest. "Better means he has earned more work from us." Emma nodded, as if receiving sacred instruction. Megan wrote down the feeding and warming schedule with careful block letters. Roy sat near the back door with his bad legs stretched out, pale from pain, but alert. Penny, restored by other people's exhaustion, stole one of Ben's gloves and dragged it under the stove. Ben found it 10 minutes later, damp at the thumb, and held it up. "County equipment," he said. Penny sneezed. Walt pointed with his cane. "Strong legal defense." Claire arrived from a radio check at the county vehicle, with her clipboard tucked under one arm and her face drawn from lack of sleep. Her coat was still zipped, her hair still tied back, but something in her expression had been sanded down during the night. Not softened exactly, more honest at the edges. She placed the incident log on Warren's table. "Temporary emergency visual support activated at 2116, stopped at 0104. County relay confirms Grace Chapel passengers transferred safely. No unauthorized directional signal recorded. Beam used as fixed ridge reference only." Walt leaned toward Cole. "That means we did not accidentally invent a felony." Claire looked at him. "It means procedure kept people alive. Buildings do not get credit for behaving when people supervise them properly." Walt grunted. "You make gratitude sound like a traffic citation." "Gratitude without maintenance becomes negligence," Claire said. Cole poured coffee into a chipped mug and set it near her hand. She stared at it for a moment. "Do not read too much into this." "I am not reading. You are exactly the sort of man who reads." He almost smiled. The room noticed and kindly pretended not to. The report did not turn Snowline into a public rescue station. Claire was precise about that. The tower stairs needed reinforcement. The generator required service by someone who did not insult it as a diagnostic method. The radio needed a backup battery and a posted call sheet. The pantry had to be inventoried weekly if it would hold emergency supplies. The beacon could not be used outside coordinated conditions. No romance, Claire said, tapping the paper. No heroic improvisation. No private signal visible in a storm because someone thinks light automatically means hope. Cole looked at the brass compass in her hand. It had appeared again while she spoke, hanging from a worn cord, its lid dented. She saw his glance and for once did not hide it. "My brother's," she said. His name was Aaron. He was 26. He thought caution was something older people invented because they were jealous of speed. Walt lowered his eyes. Rachel stopped pretending to reorganize the medical bag. Claire turned the compass once in her palm. "I spent years hating anything that looked like a light in snow. Last night did not fix that. It gave it a job." Later, Cole found her in the pantry, looking at Megan's labels. Blankets, soup, dog food, hand warmers, towels, first aid. The shelves were uneven but orderly. Claire ran one finger along the edge of the first aid kit, then set the brass compass beside it. Cole said nothing. Silence helped some gifts land. Claire kept her eyes on the shelf. If people are going to leave things here for emergencies, that belongs here more than in my pocket. The cabin seemed to quiet around the small object. Cole understood that she had not given away grief. Nobody did that. She had changed what it was for. From the kitchen came a scrape, then a little gasp from Emma. Cole and Claire turned. Blue had pushed himself upright. It was not graceful. It was not even successful. The tiny pup wobbled on all four legs, head too heavy, eyes unfocused, body trembling with the outrageous ambition of being alive. Sage lifted her head, but did not rush him. Rachel froze with one hand halfway to her bag. Megan covered her mouth. Roy leaned forward. Blue took one step. Then he tipped sideways into the towel and vanished in softness. Penny immediately pounced beside him as if celebrating a championship. Emma laughed and cried at once, the sound small and bright, like a match striking in a dark room. Rachel cleared her throat. Nobody saw that. If I have to tell him he is not cleared for athletics, I will be very cross. Sage nudged Blue back into the warm fold and then looked toward Cole. He did not know what to do with the look. It held no demand. That made it worse. Near noon, while everyone found separate reasons to be busy, Cole sat at Warren's table with the sales folder open. The preservation buyer had left 2 messages with the attorney. The offer was fair, more than fair. The papers were clean and simple, made by people who knew how to turn complicated things into signature lines. Cole held a pen above the place where his name belonged. He thought of the life waiting below the mountain. Short leases, quiet rooms, work that ended when the invoice cleared. No dogs sleeping by the stove. No child looking at him as if he might help her believe the world had not taken everything. No county officer placing grief on his pantry shelf. No old tower asking his shoulder to hurt for a reason. He had arranged his life so nothing fragile could depend on him longer than necessary. It had seemed wise. It had also been lonely enough to pass for peace if he did not examine it closely. Blue made another faint sound from the towel nest. Not distress this time. Annoyance. Penny had stepped on his ear. Emma corrected her with solemn authority. Sage sighed a long, motherly sound that made Rachel mutter, "I share the sentiment." Cole lowered the pen. The smallest creature in the cabin had not stood because he was healed. He had stood because life, when given a narrow chance, often tried before it was ready. Cole closed the sales folder. He did not tear it up. He did not announce anything. He simply placed it in the lower drawer of Warren's table and shut the drawer. Some decisions did not need thunder. They needed a place to live. Outside sunlight moved across the snow and touched the tower glass. For the first time since arriving, Cole looked at Snowline and did not see a property. He saw a question waiting for his answer. The week after the storm did not bring spring. Montana was not sentimental enough for that. Snow remained high against the porch rails, the road stayed difficult, and the wind still found cracks when it wanted to remind people who owned the mountain. But Snowline Lookout changed all the same. Not by miracle, by hands. Walt came 3 mornings in a row with radio wire, a generator belt, and an expression suggesting the machine had insulted his family. He tightened, tested, cursed, listened, and tightened again. Rachel drove up whenever the road allowed, stocked a locked veterinary shelf, and told everyone that Blue's improvement was not an invitation to become stupid. Claire posted a laminated call sheet beside the radio, then spent 20 minutes adjusting it until level, because apparently even emergency instructions needed posture. Roy built a better rack for firewood and repaired the pantry shelf that sagged under soup cans. Megan inventoried supplies with dates and notes. Emma read aloud from a book about mountain animals, while Blue slept, and Penny attempted to eat the corner of a county form. Cole worked through the days with a soreness that became almost companionable. His shoulder hurt when he lifted boards, when he checked the tower crank, when he carried water, when he woke in the night because the stove had gone low. The pain did not vanish. It changed shape. It became attached to tasks instead of memories. That mattered. At night, when the cabin settled and the others had gone down to town or fallen asleep in chairs they denied using, Cole sat near the stove with Sage. The mother dog had gained strength. Her sable coat began to show its real color under the grime, gold, brown, and black thickening at the neck. She still watched every door. She still disliked sudden hands. But sometimes when Cole placed a bowl down, she ate before checking every corner of the room. Sometimes she allowed her side to rest against the leg of his chair for one breath before moving away as if the contact had been accidental. He let her keep the fiction. Megan came each afternoon after her diner shift, smelling of coffee fryer oil and cold air. She never arrived empty-handed. Sometimes she brought clean towels, sometimes a small bag of kibble bought with tips. Sometimes only herself, which Rachel said counted if she followed instructions. Megan did not ask to take Sage home. Cole did not offer. The truth sat between them without needing cruelty. Sage had loved the Fosters. She had also chosen Snowline when survival narrowed to a single road. Emma understood it better than the adults. She would sit near Sage, not touching unless invited, and tell her about school, about the spelling test she hated, about the way Penny stole a mitten from her backpack and hid it behind the flour tin. Sage listened with one ear angled toward the girl and the other toward her pups. Emma began speaking more outside the cabin, too. Mrs. Alvarez at the laundromat told Megan that the child had said thank you loud enough to be heard over dryer number 4. Megan cried in the truck and pretended it was the heater. Roy's pride repaired slowly, which was to say, honestly. He still snapped when offered help too quickly. He still went quiet when his leg failed him. But Snowline had many broken things, and broken things did not pity a man. They waited. A hinge needed a lining. A stair brace needed sanding. A shelf needed a better support. Roy could do those jobs, seated, standing, leaning, stopping, beginning again. Cole learned to ask for specific help instead of offering general sympathy. Can you mark this board? Does this angle look wrong? Hold the flashlight. Roy answered those requests because they gave him the dignity of being necessary. One afternoon, he and Walt argued for 20 minutes about whether Warren had used the wrong screws in the west stair brace. Claire listened for exactly 30 seconds and declared them both historically irritating. Walt called that slander. Roy smiled for the first time where other people could see it. The preservation buyer did come up as promised, in a silver SUV with good tires and a wool coat too clean for a working mountain. His name was Andrew Lowell, a polite man with kind eyes and careful shoes. He loved old structures, he said. He wanted to stabilize Snowline, photograph it, perhaps host seasonal tours when access allowed. He spoke respectfully of Warren. He admired the tower. He admired the view. though the view was mostly cloud that day. He did not do anything wrong. That made the decision more difficult. Cole walked him through the cabin while Rachel guarded the towel nest like a customs officer. Claire pretended not to listen from the radio table, and Penny tried to climb into Andrew's leather briefcase. Sage stood between the buyer and the stove, not growling, simply present. Andrew looked at her and smiled. "Comes with the place." Cole looked at the dog, then at Emma, who had gone very still. "No," Cole said. "She comes with herself." That evening, after Andrew drove back down with the promise to wait for Cole's decision, the cabin grew quiet. Snow tapped at the glass. Blue slept with his nose tucked under Sage's foreleg. Penny lay upside down, one paw twitching as if stealing something in a dream. Cole found Warren's final letter tucked behind a topographic map of the ridge. He had missed it before because the paper had slid inside the folded chart. The handwriting was weaker than the pantry labels, but still square, still stubborn. "Cole, if you are reading this at Snowline, then the old place outlasted me, and so did my habit of leaving notes where people least want them. You do not inherit timber, glass, or rusted iron. You inherit a question. When the dark comes, will you close the door because it is easier, or keep a light ready for someone who has not made it home? I failed plenty. You will too. That is not the measure. The measure is whether you let failure make you useless." Cole read the page once, then again. The words did not absolve him. He distrusted easy absolution. They did something better. They gave him work. He carried the letter to the stove and sat where Sage could see him. "I was not there when Mason needed me," he said quietly. The name entered the room like a person stepping in from the cold. Sage lifted her head. Cole had not said his friend's name aloud in months, maybe longer. He could still feel the radio in his hand, the delay, the wrong turn, the weight of command decisions that looked different after blood dried. "I have been trying to live where nobody could need me like that again." Sage blinked. From the towel nest, Blue sighed in his sleep. Cole folded Warren's letter and set it beside the sales folder. The cabin did not answer with thunder. It answered with the stove, the sleeping dogs, the radio's small green light, and Emma laughing softly in the pantry because Penny had found Claire's inspection tape. Outside, the tower stood in the snow, not asking Cole to be Warren, not asking him to be the man he had been before loss, only asking what kind of living man he intended to become. The next morning opened clear and cold, with sunlight pouring over Snowline Ridge and turning the snowfields blue in the shadows and gold where the light touched them. Cole stood on the porch with Warren's letter in his jacket pocket and watched Andrew Lowell's silver SUV climb the last bend in the road. The buyer stepped out carrying the revised agreement, his smile polite, his offer still generous, his plans still clean. Behind Cole, the cabin had begun its ordinary morning noise. Rachel telling Blue he was not impressive enough to ignore medical advice, Megan stacking towels in the pantry, Roy and Walt arguing over a bracket neither of them could see well without glasses, Claire checking the radio log while pretending Penny was not chewing the end of her bootlace, Emma whispering to Sage as if the shepherd were the only adult who could be trusted with secrets. It was not peaceful in the perfect sense. It was better than that. It was alive. Andrew looked around and said, "This place has quite a spirit." Cole nodded. "It does." They sat at Warren's table with the sales folder weighted beside the lookout log. Andrew explained the preservation plan again. Stabilize the structure, limit winter access, build a small interpretive display. Keep the tower beautiful. Cole listened with respect because the man deserved that. Then Blue sneezed from the towel nest. Penny pounced on the sound, Sage corrected her daughter with one paw, and Emma laughed so hard she had to cover her mouth. Cole looked at the folder. Beauty was not the problem. A place could be beautiful and useless at the same time. Snowline had been useful when people were cold, frightened, and not yet home. That was what he could not sell. He closed the folder and pushed it gently across the table. I am not ready to let it go. Andrew studied him, then looked at the pantry labels, the radio sheet, the compass on the first aid shelf, the mother dog by the stove. Maybe ready is the wrong word, he said. Maybe called is better. Cole did not answer at once. The word should have felt too large. Instead, it fit quietly like a coat taken from a hook. Over the next weeks, Snowline became official in the least glamorous way possible. Forms, inspections, repairs, more forms. Claire made certain everyone understood that it was not a public rescue station, not an open lodge, not a beacon to be used on impulse, and absolutely not a place where Walt could make policy while holding a wrench. It became a conditional winter shelter point with county coordination, a maintained radio log supplies, and clear limits. Walt said that meant yes in government language. Claire said it meant responsibility in any language. Rachel stocked the veterinary shelf and kept the key. Ben added Snowline to the rescue reference list. Roy built a new pantry rack and later a sign from plain pine boards. Snowline Winter Point, it read, and below it, in Emma's careful paint, warmth for the ones still coming home. Megan cried when she saw it. Roy pretended to inspect a screw. Cole saw and let them have the privacy of not being rescued from tenderness. Sage chose her own arrangement. Nobody voted. Nobody asked her to declare loyalty. She slept by the stove, patrolled the porch at dusk, walked beside Cole to the tower and stood watch whenever Emma visited. Some nights she rested her head on Cole's boot and looked surprised to find it there. Blue grew slowly smaller than Penny, serious and easily tired. He often fell asleep sitting up, as if life had asked him to attend a long meeting. Penny grew round, fast, and morally flexible. She stole gloves, pencils, one of Walt's pipe cleaners, and Claire's inspection tape twice, creating official displeasure and unofficial joy. Emma started talking at school again. Megan took more shifts and stopped apologizing every time she entered the cabin. Roy's leg did not heal into a storybook ending, but his hands steadied. Claire still checked everything. But one day, Cole found her smiling at the compass on the shelf before she noticed him and returned her face to regulation. Spring came late to the mountain. Snow shrank from the porch steps. Water ran under the pines. The first green showed near the woodpile. Cole opened a new logbook on Warren's table and wrote the date. Snowline maintained, supplies checked, radio clear. A mother dog brought her dying pup to this door. We are trying not to fail what she trusted us with. He set the pen down. Outside, Sage stood in the sun, sable coat lifting in the wind, torn ear bright at the edge. Blue and Penny tumbled in the softening snow below the steps, one cautious, one reckless, both alive. Emma ran after them laughing. Megan stood near Roy, whose hand rested on the new sign. Rachel leaned against her truck with coffee. Walt complained about the generator to anyone within range. Claire watched the tower, not as if it had taken her brother, but as if it might help someone else's brother come home. Cole looked up at the lantern room. He had come to sell a burden. Instead, he had inherited a question. Sometimes destiny did not arrive like thunder. Sometimes it came through snow, in the mouth of a starving mother set a fragile life at your feet, and waited to see whether you still knew how to keep a light burning. That evening, after everyone had gone down the mountain except for Cole and the dogs, the cabin settled into a quieter kind of happiness. Cole carried one last armload of wood inside and found Sage waiting beside the stove. Not guarding, now, simply present. Blue slept with his nose tucked under Penny's ear, and Penny, for once, had stolen nothing larger than a wood shaving. Cole opened Warren's logbook again and added one more line beneath the first entry. We will keep the light honest. He looked at those words for a long time. Honest meant maintained. Honest meant logged. Honest meant warm, without pretending winter was harmless. It meant love with discipline, hope with a map, Mercy with enough patience not to rush a fragile thing before it could stand. Sage rose, crossed the floor, and leaned her shoulder against his knee. This time she did not pretend it was an accident. Cole rested his hand lightly on her neck, feeling the strong life under the fur, and the silence inside him no longer felt empty. It felt held. In the end, Snowline was never just an old lookout. It was a reminder that God can use the smallest life to wake the part of us we thought grief had buried. Cole believed he had inherited timber glass and rusted iron, but what he truly received was a chance to stay when leaving would have been easier. A starving mother dog, a weak puppy, a frightened child, and a handful of tired neighbors became a quiet miracle. That is how grace often comes, not with thunder, but through a door left open, a warm towel, a repaired hinge, a light kept ready, and a heart willing to care again. In daily life, we may pass people or animals who are asking for help without words. They may come through silence, tired eyes, shame, or a need the world thinks too small to matter. If this story touched your heart, comment Amen. Share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe for more stories of courage, loyal dogs, second chances, and the gentle ways God keeps calling us home.